Hello and welcome back to the Age of Sunbros YouTube channel. This is Sir Shark Dad again with another Civilization Spotlight. We got them rolling out right now, so we've gotten some really fantastic people to kind of cover these civs for you guys. And we had a soldier just recently on for our Dutch Civilization Spotlight, and thankfully MFD got me connected with another person to cover Ethiopia, which I was very, very worried about finding somebody to cover Ethiopia, to be honest with you. And so this is actually going to be somebody from the German side of things, on German YouTube, German Twitch streaming. I'm very, very excited to bring on Meloncola for our Ethiopia coverage. How are you doing? And thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm feeling really well. I'm pretty excited to do this here with you. And maybe to bring some people near to the Ethiopian lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
I like that.
There are not so many people that play it, so we can call it a lifestyle.
So with that being said, we were talking a little bit about this earlier, where you were saying, oh, I feel as if, you know, Ethiopia is very, very different, and so therefore a lot of people don't engage, you know, with the civ. Yeah, exactly. And so do you feel like that's a misconception with Ethiopia, like people just don't get how the civ can actually be quite accessible, or do you feel like this is actually a very difficult civ and you should, only advanced players should really try to get into it?
I honestly think many people have a weird conception of Ethiopia, because Ethiopia from the outside seems extremely hard because you are so flexible and have so many ways to play the civ. But if you go deeper into Ethiopia, you only have like 2 or 3 really good meta builds which work. Like, actually they're not really that hard to play. The thing with Ethiopia is that everything is different from any other civ. The age-ups are different, the units are completely different. So like they have really weird unit types, weird age-ups, weird buildings. It's, for the traditional AoE player, it's probably not very common, and many people are afraid of trying it, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I mean, it's definitely been an attractive civ. I think a really cool civ. I just haven't really had the time to really get into it, but I'm excited. I'm willing and able to learn from your expertise. So I have one big question, and that is, yeah. So let's not talk about what makes Ethiopia different, because we already established everything is different, right? So let's talk about, what is Ethiopia, what do you think are Ethiopia's strengths and what are their weaknesses?
So I think the biggest strengths of Ethiopia are, as I said, the flexibility. You have so many different age-ups, so many different techs. Like, that's a very special thing, for that you get 2 unique techs for every age-up. And the synergies with the techs and stuff like that, so you are really flexible. You have an answer into almost anything if you know the civ well. And that's the biggest plus with the civ, I think. Also, I mean, many people know that by now, but the units, the complete armies, the compositions. Ethiopia has one of the strongest military arsenal in the game, I think. I mean, there are a few better ones like Ottomans, we know that. But Ethiopia is definitely up there, I think. And like the thing with nobody plays them is always your biggest strength, because nobody knows what's going on.
Right. So you can just put units on the field and they won't know how to counter it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or they don't even know the timings when units will come out and stuff like that. And also one of the biggest strengths, I mean, we have it with Hausa as well, is the livestock market.
Right.
Which is such a big eco boost for the whole civ.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about what the livestock market is. So as far as my understanding, that is just, so a player who's new, right, would say, okay, this is a market, right, where I can buy certain techs and trade resources, but then there's an extra mechanic with the cattle, right? So can you go ahead and explain that to us?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, the market, you get it every time you spawn. So it's like you get it in H1 as a travois, and then you get a few cattle, and the cattle can go through to the market like livestock pen. It's working the same, but the difference is you could not only get food from the livestock, you could also sell them on the market. for like wood and coin.
Nice.
And that's the mechanic that helps you a lot on macroing and gives you a lot of extra eco. And what also important is, you can also get the livestock on the map to put it on it. So if you're playing on the map with livestock running around, Ethiopia is so much stronger than on normal maps.
Yeah, because then you can just sell those instead of just relying specifically on the zebu cattle. So there's a little bit of there's a little bit there for you to kind of smooth things out. Let's what would you say is like a big weakness then? So with Ethiopia being so flexible and they're so different and people don't really get them, what would you say is the weakness?
So Ethiopia has a lot of issues in the late game, especially because if you don't really, you can play hardcore eco Ethiopia, but if you do this, you mostly get punished for it because you have to go really greedy. And also, I think the units are great and the compositions can be great, but against really strong Skirm-Goon civs, you are lacking a bit of damage from your skirms. And that's also the biggest issue. So later on, the longer the game goes, and it gets worse for you, I would say.
Okay, gotcha. And then I want to also ask a little bit before we get into it. Can you tell us a little bit about mountain monasteries? What are they? How they work? You know, because I feel like that's also kind of a base of it. And then also feel free to talk about the Abun as well while you're talking about the mountain monastery.
So the mountain monastery is one of the most unique buildings in the game. I would say you can build it besides mines, but the main reason you build them is you place them on mines, and they auto gather coin and influence on these mines. And you can also get your villagers and your abuns onto them, and they gather faster from it than from a normal mine. And the abuns kinda work like a combat healer as well. So they can gather coin and they do it faster than normal wills. But they can also heal, and it's not like priests. We know priests heal. But abuns can heal whilst your units are in combat, and that's like the only unit in the game that can really do it, which makes room for very, very weird interactions and very weird fighting for some people.
Okay, gotcha. And then, my question is as a couple of follow-ups, just to kind of get into the details of it. When it comes to the mountain monastery for players, do you just say 50% coin, 50% influence, or is there times where you personally kind of change it in terms of the percentages of how much it gathers of what resource?
It really depends. That's like one of the advanced things on Ethiopia. You would like to have more coin most of the time, like when you are going to age up or something and need coin, then you always shift it to full coin. But then in transitions, when you mostly need some influence, you could also go 50-50. You have to be aware what you need of both resources. Mostly you need more coin, but if you want to make a big timing with influence shipments and influence units, then it would be rather good to be on 50-50.
Okay. And let's talk about influence really quick too while we're here. What is it? Like we're saying, when you're gathering influence, how would you explain what influence is and why is it important?
So influence is a special resource only the African civs, so Hausa and Ethiopia have. It's a resource that gets gathered by your livestock on the livestock market. So it's a passive income. And you can also get it from trading posts if you upgrade them. And also from the mountain monastery, from the gathering. And what it does basically is you build all your native units and native techs with it. You build your mercenaries with it. And your mercenary shipments also cost influence. So that's the main reason you use this resource for.
Okay, got it. So it's mainly for like when you put down your palace or whatever it is, like you're going to use that mainly for getting certain units out, mainly, right? Is using influence. Exactly. Okay, so that's interesting.
The most common usage is like for the mercenary shipments, because mercenary shipments create huge timings. But also there are a few mercenary techs as like strategies that you can use with Ethiopia, because the influence gathering on the monasteries can get extremely high when you have many wills on it.
So then,
I think it's great.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Oh,
You
okay.
can go ahead.
I was gonna ask. So then, if that's the case, if I have a fourth resource, right, and I'm gathering it a lot, and I can get these mercenaries and these mercenary timings and all these different units, I don't ever really have to touch my main resources. Then I can just age up and produce villagers, and I can just use influence only, right? Is that a possibility with Ethiopia, just to use influence just to make all my military?
I think it's not possible anymore. The like release Ethiopia was a bit more busted in that way, but it's more in addition to your normal army. So it's like you would mass the same as other civs, but it's like an addition. So you always have like a bit more army than normal civ.
Okay, I see. Okay, so you can't just bulk with that. Okay, interesting. So then,
Yeah.
so then let's talk. I want to circle back to the Abun just to get that out of the way as well. So the Abun, you saying it gathers on the mountain monastery, and it's a faster gatherer on the mountain monastery, right? But then you can also use it in combat to heal your units while they're in combat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and so how do you decide when you switch, right? So do I keep my Abun always on the mountain monasteries, or do I, when the fight breaks out, do I move them all off and keep them in their own control group, or how do you handle that?
So every time you would push, or it's a game decisive moment, you always move them to the front. And then what you have to do is you have to make an extra control group for them, because if you just Z move them in, they will just walk in front and die. But you have to held them behind and just let them heal your units.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Okay. Okay. So a little bit more micro intensive than for a newer
it is.
player. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So I just wanted to get all that out of the way before we jumped into the deck, because we're going to then start talking about unique units and stuff like that. But like those are going to be, I feel like, the main mechanics to go over.
Yeah, sure.
So then, Meloncola, I have a test deck here. Okay, this is a blank canvas for you. Okay, and I'm going to ask you to build me the most universal standard land deck that you can think of, and you know, you can tell me, oh, this is going to be a naked FF, a semi FF, an FI, whatever you think is the standard build for Ethiopia.
So that's very interesting, because I have a really unique position in the Ethiopia gaming.
Okay, no problem.
I have my very own build that only I really play. I mean, few people try it. It was played in a few tournaments also, but I'm like the creator of it, and it's my special build, and I would like to show it for sure, because I think it's the strongest way to play Ethiopia. Many people disagree on that, but for me it just works the best, and it's really, really nuts.
Okay, hey, listen, I'm super excited. We're all here for nuts builds. So let's start in age 1. What cards am I taking in age 1?
So the most important age 1 card for sure is the Trinity card.
Okay.
That's like, normal civs have like 3 wills, but Ethiopia has 2 wills and 1 abun. And I already said it, an abun gathers on coin faster than a villager. So scaling wise, it's better than 3 wills in H1. You could say it's worse, but the thing is, you can use your abun to heal your scout while it's taking treasures. So you can argue that you can get more treasures, so it's also eco boost early on. It's very, very, very unique mechanic.
Okay, gotcha. So because you're not really going to be gathering coin in age 1 from a mountain monastery, right? So then it's best to just have the abun follow your explorer.
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay. So then what is else in age 1?
So also in age 1 I've got the Oromo migration.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
like,
that's going to be... Oh, this guy, right?
Yeah. That's also a really, really nuts card. So it gets you 1 will that you lost for 50 coin, 50 food, up to 15. So if you got a big raid going on, you lose like 10 or 15 wills, and you have a bit of food on the bank, you can just send this card and get all your wills back. It's an extremely toxic mechanic, and I'm not really a big fan of it. But I mean, if it's there, I can use it.
Right. They're allowing it, right? So you know, might as well. It's there. Okay, so Aroma Migrations, it's a little bit of a forgiving card if you lose Vils. What else is in age 1?
I mean, also really, I would say noob-friendly card. Like, in lower Elos, there are more builds getting hit to raids, and it's more forgiving to newer players, I would say.
Right.
And also, last card in H1 is the Tableau, which is also really, really insane card. So we talked about mountain monasteries. If a mine runs out, then they're like basically completely useless. They don't do anything. I mean, they have a great line of sight, but you can't do anything with them. And then this card allows, it gives you 900 coin to every mountain monastery. So you get like extra mines onto the monasteries again. And later on, you have like 4 to 5 monasteries, and we can do a little bit of maths. 5 times 900 is like 4,500 gold that you get extra to farm. So your transition to gold is so you never really have to transition if you do it like the right timing. If the game doesn't go like for 1.5 hours or something.
Okay, and then couldn't I put down a mountain monastery just anywhere, not on a mine, right? And then
exactly.
They can gather the coin. Yeah.
You can also delete mountain monasteries and build them new, and they spawn with 900 coin in it.
Jeez. Great.
I never really understood if this was intended or not, but it works and it still works. So I think it's not a bug; it's intended, but it's a bit weird.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we're gonna use it. It's there. Is there anything else in Age 1 you want to include?
Not include, but I would like to talk about the Indian spice trade card.
Okay. Sorry. I'm gonna.
Yeah, you have to look for it. It's
trying to remember.
Right below.
Is it this one? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I have also a few builds where you go for the trade line, and there are ways against turtle sieves where you really want to discard in your deck, but it's a more specific thing. So the thing it does is it gives you 30% more income from your trade route and 60% more on influence, so like doubled on that. And what also a unique mechanic of Ethiopia is that you need influence to build artillery. That's also something we didn't talk about. In the palace, you have to research tech to build falcons, wolves, and mortar.
Yeah.
And you can use influence for it. And when you play against turtle, you can just farm very, very much influence with this card and just do your artillery and match the FI plays or turtles and stuff like that. So for this occasions, I think the card is really, really good, but I wouldn't include it in a standard deck.
Okay. I haven't actually heard of any Ethiopian player talk about this card. So that's actually pretty interesting. I didn't realize it.
That's what I said. I mean, I have a really, really unique standpoint on playing Ethiopia.
Okay. Is there any other cards that you want to give an honorable mention to, or is that about it?
Nah, that's about it. I think
cool.
The rest is
yeah, no problem. So we'll go right into H2 here. A lot more options. So what are we looking at?
Yeah. So first of all, we want the stock standard 700 wood and 700 coin.
Okay, I don't think those need any explanation, but all right.
I don't think we need any explanations. And then a really, really interesting card we for sure want the Big Benny.
Big Benny. Okay, so
the prize pool.
So what are these?
So as it says, it gives you a fattened cattle containing 750 food, and you can fatten it up to 900 food. And I mean, we talked about it with Ethiopia. It's not only food. You can sell them for nuts amounts of wood or coin. The stock standard, if you send it first shipment H2, is 750 wood with one shipment,
wow.
Which is insane. It's more than the 700, plus you don't have to idle builds to gather it. So it's just a really, really, really strong economy shipment.
Okay, gotcha. And you can send it twice, so which is pretty nice.
It's like combined 1,500 resources in H2.
Jeez. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, what's next?
I would also include the 700 influence card.
Okay.
Because it gives you a lot of options for like mercenary shipments or going for natives and stuff like that. I think you have many more options if you include this card in your deck.
Okay, makes sense.
Also, I would add 4 builds because it's like your only really, really good eco shipment besides the crates.
Okay.
It's not the best shipment, but it helps you out sometimes. And then to unit shipments, I would include these 6 Gascanias.
Okay, let's talk about Gascanias.
Yeah, sure.
What are
My
Gascanias?
absolute favorite. So essentially, Gascanias are a musketeer unit, but they are throwing spears. And what the unique thing about them is, the closer you get to enemy units, the faster they attack. So like, if you stand right in front of enemy units, they have the maximum amount of damage. And also besides that, they have really, really high damage, so their DPS is completely insane. And because of that, they don't have that much HP. I mean, it's 130, I think. That's a bit less than a normal musketeer, but they get so much more DPS out. And also they are 4.5 speed, which makes them also, like, we all know for sure Ashigaru raids.
Right.
With Japan. You could also do the same thing with Gascanias, but because they attack faster, the closer you get, if you stand right next to Wilds, you almost delete them. So it's a really, really toxic raiding unit and also a really mobile unit. So yeah, I think they are a bit overtuned overall.
Are they the standard 12 range of a musketeer?
No, exactly not. They have 13 range.
Oh my god. Wow. Okay. So then, but you still want to try to close. So even if you're at the 13 range, you want to try to go up a little bit more, right? Just to increase the DPS, right? So that's going to be something that an Ethiopian player is going to need to think about, right?
It depends. Like, when you know you will lose the trade, then you will like to kite out. But if you know you have the same mass or a bit more, you always want to get close to the enemy.
Okay.
And also a really interesting thing, I talked with MFD about it, because they have such high attack speed in the closer they get, they pretty much don't really overkill, because the first line, if you have like 10 units, they have a first line and a second line. 5 in one line, 5 in the other line.
Right.
And the 5 in front have a bit higher attack speed than the 5 back, so if they focus the same unit, and 5 in the first line kill it, the 5 in the second line automatically focus the next unit. So like, it's a really micro-friendly unit because you don't really have to care about overkilling.
I see. Okay, interesting. So for those who are not following along, what's being said is that overkill basically is just to say that if a bunch of if 30 units shoot at the same time at one unit, you've wasted 30 shots, because if the person was going to die in 5, that's 25 shots that are just whiffed, right? And that may not be an issue if you have 30 just versus 1, but if you have 30 versus 25 and they're all shooting at the 1, then that's, you know, that's really a problem. It's overkill. And so Gascania avoid it because of the way that the formations work and the DPS. They're just going to immediately move down the line. So as others are focusing fire, because of the increased DPS, they're going to have a higher DPS, not overkill, kill that one, and the ones behind it will then just move on to the next thing. And so, therefore, slightly more efficient than other units.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I did not think about that. So, cool. Gascania, awesome.
It's really, really advanced. It's like, we would say nerd shit.
Okay.
Like, if you just play Ethiopia, you wouldn't think about stuff like that, but I played like a few thousand games of only Ethiopia, and then you are getting curious and stuff like that. And I think it's actually pretty interesting, because it shows how game mechanics really work and how they get outplayed partly by the Civ.
So you're going to say that this is going to be the bulk of your composition? You like using the Gascania primarily, or do you only use them really in Age 2?
For me, it's mostly the stock standard anti-cav unit that I use, even in Age 3. There are like matchups against cav-heavy civs like Lakota or Germany, where you would like to go for Javelin Riders, so the goon unit of Ethiopia, because you have to cover raids and have to be mobile on the map. That's something where Gascanias lack a bit. But so in direct combat, I would always prefer them over the goons. Okay,
got it. So you're more of a Gascania Falconet enjoyer, you could say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Not only Gascania Falconet, I mean, we could also go to the next unit, the 6 Shotel Warriors.
Ooh, okay, so this is a controversial unit, to put it lightly.
It is.
So what are Shotel warriors, and then why are they controversial?
Shotel warriors are basically shock infantry, so like cavalry, but not on a horse. It's only infantry basically, but it works as a cav. And what they are basically, they are semi-lancers, so they have a neutral multiplier against heavy inf, and they have a 1.5 multiplier I think in light inf against light inf. So like if they stick on skirmishers, the skirmishers are just that. They have really high attack speed, multipliers against skirmishers, and if they connect, if you have a big mass, you can also mass them really good because they are not really expensive. And also what's a big controversy about them is their formational walking. So cav units are like, they don't really have the best formations. They are really widespread, but Shotel warriors move like musks basically, or other infantry units. That's a big controversy because the raids are getting really strong with it, because you can cover much more mass with these, so you can block wilds more easily, you can get on units more easily. They can't really get blocked from units that easily. Yeah.
Okay. But they can be snared, so they're not like Chimu runners where
they can get snared.
Okay, they can be snared.
That's like their only really weakness.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
but,
so okay.
But I would say they are like Ethiopia's strongest and the unit that you build all your compositions around.
Okay, so it's interesting because we were talking about with MFD, I was talking about how when you're playing How to Know Shawnee, we talked about how the Forest Prowler is kind of like the star of the show, right? You want to make sure that everything is in service of getting the Forest Prowler working. And then when we talked about the Lakota, we talked about how getting the Axe Riders working, that's the star of the show. Yeah. And then now we're talking about Ethiopia, and you're saying the Shotel warriors are going to be the star of the show.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we can say so. Most of the times you will go up against Skirm-Goon Siths like France and stuff like that, because it's the most standard way to play unit compositions. And if you have a cav unit which has multipliers, it's like when you go Lancers as Spain, they also have multipliers against infantry, but you can't really get a big Lancer mass in early H3 and stuff like that. So that's a big plus for Ethiopia. You can mass them really hard if you eco stance. And you also, I mean, like mostly it's Skirm-Goon versus Skirm-Goon, and Skirm-Goon versus Skirm-Goon isn't, there's no counter really. It's the same composition for both sides. So you just win if you micro it better or if you get more mass out. But with Ethiopia, you can counter Skirm-Goon, and I think that's a really important point for the Sith, which makes it really strong.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so we have the Shotel warrior. That was a lot of information, but it's quite good. Think if you're a new player, you're like, I'm confused as to how this is a cavalry guy that's running really fast. Just think it's a weaker Hussar in terms of HP, but it's a very fast-moving infantry unit that serves the function of a Hussar, is probably the best way to understand it. And then, of course, additionally, there's a lot of benefits that come with that. And so, okay, so we have Gaskenya Shotel warriors, which are the star. And then, is there anything else in H2?
Yeah, there are a few more cards. I would go with the Palace card. It's right under the 700 wood.
Right under 700. Oh, the Palace card. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1 Palace wagon and 300 influence. So, of course, I'm going to ask you, what is a palace? Do I get a fort in H2?
Yeah, exactly. So it looks really like a 4, but you don't have to get afraid. It doesn't really make that much damage. I mean, it makes damage. It's stronger than an outpost, but much weaker than a 4. So it's basically a defensive building where you can build mercenaries and artillery from, and also natives that you get from your age up. We can talk about that one later.
Okay.
But it's also a military shipment point, which is also really important and something I use with my builds really much.
Okay.
And what this card also does is it sends you 300 influence with it. So basically the value is palace costs 200 wood and 200 gold, so that's 400 resources. And 300 influence also 300 influence, 300 resources. So it's like 700 resources and you also don't need to use the villager time to build the palace. So it's a really, really, really efficient H2 card, because most H2 cards only have the value of 700 resources, and mostly the villager time gets added right onto it. So yeah, it's a really, really effective card, I would say.
That's super interesting, because now I'm already thinking of, you can send the palace, and that can form a forward base, right? And then you can send a couple of those forward, sell a cow for coin, and wood, and then you put down another palace right next to it, which is very cancerous. Put a war camp down, and then you send 700 influence from the XP, and then that 700 influence. Then you just get a bunch of mercenaries, and then you just hard gather for age up, and then send 700 coin, and then you just have mercenaries pushing. Stronger mercenaries, H2, pushing your opponent, so they're busy, and then you're already in H3.
Yeah, you're getting on the right track here.
See, okay, so the palace allows you to train units, and so for you use it as an aggressive building, not as a defensive building, or either one.
You can use it for both, but I'm like a really aggressive player, so I mostly use it aggressively.
Okay.
So yeah, but you can also use it if you want to boom and stuff like that. It's not really my playstyle, so I don't do it, but you can for sure do it.
Okay. So just so everybody's listening, palace, very, very important building. Cool. What's next?
So next, I would say the Gaskenia attack.
Gaskenia attack. So this guy right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I mean, I only include damage. You also have the hit points. But as I said, the unit doesn't really rely on hit points. It only relies on its high DPS and high attack damage. So I only include attack.
Okay.
In my
So
decks.
you don't go for health, is what you're saying. You just the damage. Okay. Is there anything else?
Yeah, last card would be the 7 Cannoneers.
Oh, I was not expecting that, to be honest with you, but okay, cool. So 7 Cannoneers. So, and then just so everybody knows, see, it doesn't cost coin. It has these shells here, the 500. That's going to be 500 influence, is what that means.
Exactly. And you include them because many probably noticed, but Ethiopia doesn't have a skirmisher on H2. Ethiopia only has the Shotel and the Gaskenia and also the Goon. But against many matchups, you lack these skirmishers. Against Mars Musketeers, you want skirmishers in H2. Even crossbows, but you don't have them as Ethiopia. So that's a great addition to the unit arsenal of Ethiopia in H2.
Okay, cool. So this covers but are Cannoneers coded as light infantry?
They are, I think.
Okay.
I'm not really sure. I mean, I think they have the same tags as Abyss Gunners, because it's basically the same unit.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, though, is this card. So this one is very much included in a lot of Ethiopia decks, but it's not going to be in this one. Yeah. So can you speak about this card?
I don't really include that many eco cards, and the thing is, I mostly max out on Mount Monasteries in Transition, so you can't send that card if you are maxed on Mount Monasteries. So in my playstyle, in my world, the card is actually really useless. Okay,
gotcha. But if anybody's wondering, here's the description. I mean, it is a heavy eco card, right? That vastly increases the yield for coin and for influence. But this is an economic card that for you in this build you're saying is just no good. It's not going to work.
Yeah. But I would like to talk about the eco cards, because it's actually a really, really interesting thing. If you go right to the Fesoli's Gold card, especially, it's right next to the one ship. Exactly, this card. That's a really nuts card. The thing with Ethiopia is all the land upgrade cards. So you would say this Silversmith, like the cards many European civs have. But the thing with Ethiopia eco cards is they also go on fishing boats.
Oh, okay.
Like this card goes on a fishing boat. You can also add rendering plans. So the Ethiopian water play is very, very good possible in boom scenarios.
I
Because
had
the
no
upgrade
idea.
cards are like
Okay, interesting.
so not. Yeah, it's you can't really see it because it's like hidden in all
Yeah,
these
it is. Oh, but I see. Yeah, yeah,
upgrades.
great. Yeah, for the whale. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So like that's something you have to keep in mind for sure.
Okay. So this is another economic possibility, but you know, as you would say that
Yeah,
just make other decks, you know, like depending on
Yeah.
what the play is. Yeah. Okay.
Ethiopia is very, very flexible, has many, many playstyles, so you can't include every playstyle in one deck. You have to build many decks as Ethiopia to cover up anything.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so so those two for honorable mention, but we can go ahead and move on to age 3.
Yeah, we can.
So in age 3, so it's kind of interesting because it's not that many cards of a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And also the thing is there are like mostly only really military cards. That's also the thing. Not that many upgrades, not that many economic shipments like the stock standard 1,000 resources and stuff like that. But many civs have like 8 wills and stuff like that. That's not included here. We only have really strong military and mercenary shipments here, and that's very, very interesting. And shows the direction of Ethiopia really. Like it's like China in H3. You really want to build these big death balls with the military shipments.
Right.
Which also is the Ethiopian playstyle in H3. You can overroll probably any civ in early to mid H3.
Okay, interesting. So just keep that in mind, everybody, that you know, this is, if you're somebody who's like, I want to sit and do economy, this is probably not the civ for you. Not saying that it's impossible, but just probably not the civ for you.
It's possible. It has strong eco cards, but it's mostly it is just slow because the civ doesn't rely on it really.
Right, right. And we'll talk about fields in a second. We'll probably get to why that is, but let's go ahead and build this out. So what's required in age 3?
So we start with 1,000 influence.
Okay, makes sense.
This card is really, really interesting because we also see the civ also has no 2-file card, and that's like a replacement for it. So there's an age up into age 3 where you can build a town center wagon for 500 influence. So you could go 2 TCs with this card. It's like what many civs do with 1,000 wood.
Okay.
And also an opportunity is 1 Falk for Ethiopia costs 500 influence. So it's basically a 2 Falk shipment.
Okay, got it. So you...
in a way.
Okay, so you ship this in, you research the tech. Now the tech for falconets, does that cost influence or no?
It costs 250, but you should have gathered it by then, by default.
Mm-hmm.
So it only adds on to that.
Okay. All right, cool. So everybody knows, you can typically get falconets, but you can also do other units, other mercenary units if you want. But this is your 2 Falk shipment. Okay.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, next card, a really, really interesting card, very special card, is the 7 semi-fattened cattle and 1 livestock market.
Oh.
That's right next to it. That's a really, really interesting card because I said it before on my Twitch channel. Many people asked me about this card. I think it's one of the strongest eco shipments in the whole game. Because if you think about it, the main thing is you get 8 cattle with 100 food, that's 800 resources. A livestock market is 200 resources. That's 1,000 resources by default. And these cattle can fatten up to 500 food. So it's like 5 times the value if you wait a bit, and it's not taking that long.
Right.
So it's one of the most effective shipments, and what's the biggest thing with it is you can send it infinite times. So every time in H3 you need an eco boost, you can just send this card.
I never considered this. I'm very, very interested about this. And you're saying they can fatten up to 500 food, the Zebu?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, so then if you calculate, that's 4,000 food if you keep all 8 to fatten.
And that's better than H4 shipments. Way better.
That is. And then on top of that, you can upgrade the fatten rate, can't you?
Yeah, you can. You have the standard upgrade that any European civ also has in the livestock pen.
Wow. Okay. All right. So this is going to be interesting. I'm very, very excited for this. Okay, cool, cool. And just to remind everybody, again, it's not just food, right? You can do that, but you can also sell for wooden coin, and that just keeps that snowballing. That's super cool. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. Because you could argue that 4,000 food isn't that much because food gather rates are higher than other resources, but for Ethiopia, it's like it could be any resource. So, and that makes it really strong. And also one thing I didn't include, the kettles also trickle influence. So that means the card is even worth more.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, so keeping the cattle there at the market, you can just use them as an influence gather rate.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the super versatile. And then it's something that we also neglected to mention is that when you sell a cattle, it's kind of like trade rates, right? So like when you sell one, it's like, let's say it's valued at 500 coin. When you sell it, the coin value will drop for the other cattle, and so you have to wait for it to go back up. That's the way that they balance it.
Yeah, exactly. That's. I mean, it also works like that in real life.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm really, really excited about this. I'm really curious as to how this is going to play out. But let's go ahead and move on to the next cards.
So of course I said we don't really need that many eco upgrades and stuff like that. So we keep moving with 9 Gascanias.
Okay. All right. We don't need to explain Gascania again, but there you go.
But I mean, we can say most civs have 8 musketeers, but Ethiopia has 9 musketeers and 8 musketeers, which is
Very
a bit
good.
nuts, I would say. But
Yeah, it is very good.
It just concludes the idea of the H3 death ball to
Right.
a point. And then I would add the 9 ND8 Shotel Warrior.
All right.
As I said, that's the unit you build your comms around. It's the most important unit. And then we keep moving with hand infantry combat.
Okay, hand infantry combat right here. It looks a little bit different, but that again is just adding to the Shotel 15-15.
Yeah.
Very good card.
It's a Shotel combat card, and yeah, we said it. It's the unit you build around, and 30% stats on it is nuts if you think about it. The way you can mass it. So and then we can move around with another unit, the 7 Neftenias.
All right, let's talk about Neftenia.
So the Neftenia is basically the skirmisher of Ethiopia. It has many upgrade cards and tags, so you can really buff it hard. The main difference between Neftenia and the normal skirmisher is the Neftenia has 20 HP more, but 1 damage less. So overall, I think they are a bit stronger because they also have more upgrades than the normal skirmisher for European civs. But I don't really use them that much, so you need them, a few of them only. So it's like my support unit in my compositions, just to shoot out some goons if you play against skirm goons, so you can set up your Shotel all in. That's like the usage of the unit.
Okay, interesting. So you just kind of sprinkle them in. You don't really ever go skirm goon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't really like the Ethiopian skirm goon. I think if you go skirm goon versus skirm goon with Ethiopia, I think you will almost always lose it. It always feels like it. I mean, I'm not the strongest micro player, which also plays into it, but I don't like the Ethiopian skirm goon really. There are better skirm goon civs, and if you want to play skirm goon, you should go play France and civs like that. It's not the main play style of Ethiopia.
Okay, got it. All right, so just so anybody's listening, Neftenia, really cool, higher hit point skirmisher. You can upgrade it, but in this video, we're not going to really, they're nice to have. I feel the same way, to be honest with you, Meloncola. I'm a United States main, which apparently is like a very, very evil thing to say. But like as a United States main, I make a lot of regulars, right? But because everybody's like, well, they have such a good skirm goon composition. I'm like, yeah, like Carbine Cav are good, but I like the regulars just as the core, and then I add a little bit of the sharpshooters on the side, and then I mix them, and then your sharpshooters step up to counter whatever's there if you're going after dragoons or whatever, just to kind of mix them in. But the regulars are really the main bulk of the composition. I only add skirmishers just to kind of mix it in. I do the same thing with when I'm playing Britain. I do rangers and muskets, and then with France I do muskets and skirms. I like to mix it. I don't really like the skirm goon only, you know what I mean? So I totally get that.
That's really funny because that's also my standpoint on this thing. I think skirm goon under the elo of 1900 or so is mostly worse than infantry compositions, because if you skirm goon is a really micro intensive comp, and I think only the best players in the game can really play this to their full potential. So like the average player is mostly better with just infantry comps and maybe Cav with infantry, but not skirm goon. Skirm goon is way too micro intensive for most people that play the game, I think.
Yeah, and we don't have the time. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And I promise you, I am aggressively average. So it's.
Yeah, I mean, I am considered a really good player, but I'm not playing skirm goon because I'm not a micro player. I don't really micro that well. And that's why I always see I only play civs that have really strong infantry, so that's why I also play a lot of USA.
Okay.
Because as you said, that's also my standpoint with USA. Carb and Cav are good, and even very, very good when you can micro them because of their huge range.
Right.
But for most people, the regulars always work better because most people forgot the regulars also really, really strong musketeer. And that's the same with Ethiopia. People always played skirm goon with javelin riders. Javelin riders got nerfed a few times then, but people still played it because it's their comfort zone, kind of.
Right.
And I think Gaskenias are really under the radar because of the comfort zone of people.
Interesting. Okay. I want to, we should do another episode, and we can talk more about compositions, because I think that's super interesting, and I've advocated for a very long time that skirm goon is not the end all be all. I think a lot of top players, they say, well, I do skirm goon, and so therefore you do skirm goon, and I'm like, no, don't do that. Okay, interesting. Very, very interesting. You mentioned them a couple of times, so I want to, before we go to the next card, I want to ask you about the Javelin Rider before I forget. What the heck is the Javelin Rider, and why are they special?
So the Javelin Rider, the first special thing, it's a goon unit, but it's a goon unit with, what was it? It has melee armor, I think. That's the most uncommon thing on them. I'm not really that aware with HP numbers and armors and stuff like that, but it's a different thing from a normal goon.
Okay.
That's the only thing I know.
I think the big thing to add to that would be the fact that you get them in H2.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also. But as I said, it's really niche, especially in H2, because, as I said, Ethiopia doesn't have a skirmisher in H2. So you don't really have a unit to pair it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's the biggest problem with it. So they're like civs. I mean, you did the Lakota video with MFD, and you know it. They send X riders like really, really early.
Right.
And most of the times, I like a batch of Javelin riders then to cover it up, so they can't raid it. And most Lakota players don't expect it. And I mean, Lakota players know it. If your X riders die in early H2, you can basically just forfeit the game.
Yeah. I mean, according to the wiki, they have 10% range resist. But you never know with the wiki.
No, I think that's right, because that's the thing, they are more durable in skirm goon fights because of the ranged armor. That's like a big upside to them, but as I said, they get outclassed by goons now. Their only really upside is that you get them in H2 now, and then they fight a bit better. I mean, they have bigger melee multipliers against Cav, but I mean, because of the HP numbers, they can't really fight melee versus them, and that's also a good thing.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't really need them as Ethiopia, I think. It's more. I mean, Hausa is different. It's like the only anti-Cav unit they have, so they don't really have other choice of going them. But with Ethiopia, we have the choice, so I mostly don't use them.
Makes sense. And another thing too to mention is the fact that the Ethiopians have one building for their units. So this was like a huge complaint coming from a bunch of people, right? But the war camp, we mentioned that a couple of times. The war camp is both your stable and your barracks, right? And then you can do your upgrades for both in those war camps. So that's
exactly.
part of it. Yeah.
So how it works with Ethiopia, you upgrade your cavalry units. We can quickly talk about the other cavalry unit because it's a really, really interesting unit. We can talk about the Oromo warrior.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's one of the most unique units in the game, I think. It's a really, really tanky heavy cuff unit, which is really expensive. It costs 120 food and 120 coin. It's one of the most expensive units in the game, I think. Like a stock standard unit, not like mercenaries and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing of them is they have a charged musket attack. What this means is they have an attack that charges. I don't know how long it takes to charge it, because no Ethiopia player really uses them. But they have a 12 ranged attack, and then they fight in melee. And you would argue that this sounds really good first, because you don't have to engage into musketeers with them, but it's only one shot and then they have to go in, and you can't really play around the cooldown because it's way too high. And that's why it just hurts playing them, because you get a catch on skirmishers. No, you have to wait the musket animation and then you can catch the skirmishers. So it's really, really awkward to play, and nobody really likes this unit. It's just really, really awkward.
So do you have to shoot though? Couldn't I just?
You have to.
So I can't put them in melee?
No,
just not shoot?
They're permanently in melee, but you have to shoot first.
Oh my! Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, and that's what makes them really bad. Otherwise, they would be a good unit because they're really tanky. You can compare them to a Senna horseman and stuff like that,
right?
Or a Mameluke and stuff like that. So it's very high HP. But yeah, as I said, it can really only soak up damage, because before you can even get onto units, they are mostly pretty low at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, that gets the Oromo out of the way. So cool. Good to know. I didn't know that, but I always thought they were just pretty high damage, and I liked the musket, but I had no clue that it was like, a requirement, and it's kind of awkward, but interesting. Yeah. So do we want to move on to the next card?
Sure. We can do one of the last unique units, the Sebastopol mortar.
Yes. Awesome. So tell us about this. I mean, is it just a mortar?
It's not just a mortar. It's a really, really special mortar. So first of all, you don't have to pack them out, so it can shoot pretty much any time. But that means it's also slow, very, very slow and very clunky, so it's really easy to catch with cavalry and stuff like that. And it can't also really dodge culverins that well, so it's a class cannon, I would say. It's a really, really class cannon, and it's very good to siege. It's has, I think, the same range as a mortar, or a bit less, I think. It would be broken otherwise. And it has decent damage against infantry, especially against early H3 infantry with no HP upgrades and stuff like that. It can get some good kills, but most of the time you want it to siege buildings, because the siege is really, really high. I think it has 500 siege damage, which is actually very, very much for just an H3 shipment. Like, it's basically the Ethiopian 2 Falk shipment, but not really for getting pressure on infantry. You can do it, but only for siege. And against many fast industrial builds and stuff like that, you can very much put much pressure with it on it. And the most fun thing about it is, I talked about it being a glass cannon, but we talked about the Abuns. The Abuns can heal units in combat, and they can heal the Sebastopol mortar.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So that's a nice little perk, I guess. If you get into a fight, you barely save it, send the Abun, and they'll go ahead and heal it.
If you have... the biggest problem is it loses against any artillery, but if you have really good Abun and mortar micro, you can outrun falconets and shoot back and stuff like that. So it's also really awkward and toxic unit. Many people tilted because of it against me, because it's so frustrating. You think you got it, but then the Abuns come in and it is full life again, and it's so awful.
Okay. So this is something you're gonna send though for sure, right? Like we want the mortar in the deck.
Yeah, we want it. We want it. So the main thing is for sure the death ball later on with the Shotels and the Gaskenias and a few Neftenias. But if you want to put early pressure on, especially, you always want Gaskenia and Sebastopol mortar. That's like your Musk Falk. But in the other way, you play Musk Falk a bit differently. You play Musk Falk more for the pure pressure on the enemy army, but with the Sebastopol mortar, you more push and pressure the enemy base, really.
Okay, got it. So it's a cool mortar, basically, just a slightly different mortar. Okay, cool.
I mean, and also one thing, you can build them in H4 in your palace, I think.
Oh, in H4.
In H4. Only.
Oh, okay.
Like,
okay.
It's really expensive, but you can. But besides that, it's only a shipment card, so you can only get it from shipments.
Okay, good to know. Anything else in H3?
Yeah, now it's a bit of a controversy.
Mm-hmm.
I include the 15 Sudanese allies.
Oh, okay.
I love the Sudanese dervish. I think it's a really, really strong unit, and for pure mass against infantry heavy civs, it's one of the best shipments in the game. The value is so good. For 500 influence, you get 15 skirmishers. That's insane value for me. They are not the strongest skirmisher in the game, but for pure mass in your death ball, with 500 influence only, that's not really much. I think it's a pretty good card. Many people disagree on it because they don't like the unit that much, but I really like to play around it.
So, quick question about this though. It says good against heavy infantry, but they do melee damage at range. So wouldn't they be better against light infantry?
They trade okay-ish against light infantry. The thing is that most light infantry has just better stats than them. So they pretty much win against crossbows really hard, but against H3 skirmishers they lose really hard.
Okay.
And the special thing is they're really strong against infantry, but they have a neutral multiplier to light cav. So not like a normal skirmisher that's good against heavy cav, heavy inf and light cav. It's only good against heavy inf and okay-ish against light inf. And I think that's the special thing about it. It's a precise counter unit. It's not like a very versatile unit.
Okay, got it. All right, just wanted to ask that because just in case anybody's not aware, right? So skirmishers have range resistance, heavy infantry, like musketeers, have melee resistance, which is what makes musketeers good against hand cavalry versus skirmishers, which are good in, shooting at range. And so I was just asking about, because they do melee damage, you would think they bypass the resistance, but they obviously don't trade as well. So, but another one where, they are tossing really fast, so you're just adding to the DPS of the Gaskenia. So
yeah, and that's something I forgot to mention why it works so good with it. They also attack faster the closer they get to the enemy. So there we have a bit of a synergy with it. So we talked about the overkilling and how it gets less with more lines, and it also works with that. It's like the same principle of it's the same thing basically. So if you have your Gaskenia mass and behind it the Sudanese mass, you will never overkill. You can't really overkill, and that's also a big plus I think for them. And many people underestimate it.
Okay, so it's another one of those situations. So super cool. Okay, so 500 influence for 15 skirms. Very good. All right.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, all right, and then so for our last 3 cards, are we adding anything else in H3, or are these going to be in H4?
We are adding another card. And now it gets controversial. I add the 11 Somali warriors.
Ooh. Okay. So same deal, attack closer, targets faster. So you're really close in the distance, okay. And then this is kind of a dragoon?
It's a musketeer unit that hard counters any cav. So it's good against light cav and heavy cav.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So kind of like a Carolian.
That's literally the same thing, yeah. But they, as you said, they attack faster the closer they get. So you see where we are getting. It's like the same synergy with the other 2 units in your composition.
Right.
And it's also the same thing as the Sudanese. The Sudanese hard counter infantry, and these hard counter cav. So they have also synergy in between them. So I really like this.
Okay. All right. So another Merc shipment. So really, H3 is violence. So we got like maybe like 1, 2 eco cards, and the rest of it is just nothing but mass. Okay.
But like to reason it, it's like your strongest eco card is an infinite shipment. So that's why you have space for so many military cards.
I see. Okay, interesting. So let's I want to just ask really quick about just one card in H3. And so I wanted to ask about this one here. So this is like a big, you know, a lot of people include this.
Card. Yeah. I think it's a really, really strong team card. I have it in all my team decks, but it's mostly in the transition phase. It's really, really good when you get on fields.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really the playstyle you go with standard Ethiopia. I think you don't really want to send eco cards if you're building a death ball in early H3.
Right.
So it's contrary to it.
Okay, makes sense. So let's talk really quick. I know we're kind of later in the video now, but we've mentioned fields now. So do you want to tell us what granaries are and what fields are?
Yeah, sure. So the granary is a unique building for African civs. It costs nothing, which is really special. I think there's no building otherwise that costs nothing. You can legit build it anytime you want. And it's basically a building that automatically herds animals. So like your herds, you don't really have to herd that much. That's also a noob friendly thing for the Civ. So as we said, many people think the Civ is really hard, but it has many mechanics that are really noob friendly, I would say.
Right.
And also it gives you a 10% gather bonus on all food. And you can also get your hunting dogs and steel traps upgrades into them and your other food eco upgrades.
Right. Okay.
And
so,
then we can go over to fields if you want.
Yeah, please.
So fields, if you played Age of Empires 2, you are familiar with the concept of fields. It's the same thing. It's like the European civs all have their mills and their estates and stuff like that. So for African civs, it's just fields. So the fields work the same in Age of Empires 2. I think many played Age of Empires 2, including me. And so you just build them like around your granary because it buffs the gather rate. And it always looks like Age of Empires 2 base building. And I think they included it because they wanted Age of Empires 2 players to try it. But it's really weird because I don't know any Age of Empires 2 player that likes the concept of building fields where you gather infinite resources from. It's just like really annoying to do. It's the most annoying transition in the game. It's a strong transition because like mills and estates are really expensive, but the field only costs 50 wood, and it can hold 3 villagers that gather on it. So it's much more effective, but it's more annoying to build.
Right. And then it ends up being roughly the same as a mill. It's still the infinite gathering source. So even when you place everybody around the granary, it's still, this is why they lack in the late game but that's their infinite. You can, in a field, can you do, it's only food on the field, or can you do coin as well?
You can also do coin.
Okay. So then
so
it
it's
counts
like
both.
2 in 1.
Right.
And that's what makes it, we talked about flexibility, even that is flexible. So everything you can do with the Civ is flexible. And that's, I think, a really interesting mechanic that many people don't really talk about that much, that everything you can do with the Civ is very, very flexible.
Right. And one note about the granary, just to point out, is that when we say it kind of does your herding for you, it slowly attracts the animals to it. So it's not instant, though. So like when you hit a herd, it's going to move away from the granary, and you have to wait a bit for them to come back into the granary. So it's still best to just practice your herding, but the granary does help with that. Yeah. So okay, cool. So we covered that, and then so that fills up our H3. I'm going to move us into H4.
I would like to talk about a few H3 cards.
Oh yeah, please. Sorry.
we really haven't talked about the other unit upgrades. We only included the hand infantry combat.
Yes, good point.
But we also have, like, next to the 12 cannoneers, there's the cav upgrade.
Okay.
Which is,
very good.
If you look at it, it's a very good upgrade, right? But as I said, the cavalry of the Sith just lags, and that's the problem. So 10% armor and 20% damage is really, really good, especially for a goon type unit. Like the Javelin Rider, it's really good, but they're just getting outclassed, and I think it's a bit sad because you would have so many opportunities to play with the cavalry, but it just never really feels good, even with this card. And then, right next to it, there's also a really interesting card, the cartridge currency.
Yes.
It's I always have it in my team decks as well, because there are many, the fights go a lot longer. And the thing is, when you kill enemies, enemy infantry and cavalry with your units, then you just get the same amount in XP you get in gold also. So it's like an economic shipment scaling with your combat.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It sounds like a lot of coin.
It's a lot of coin. So like mostly in team games, you are the guy who makes the skirms for your team. And if you, I mean, we know when we skirm fight, there are many kills for both sides. And then the kills for you are always better because you like get double the amount of resource than your enemy does with the XP. So it's actually really interesting mechanic.
It is.
And then right next to it we have the main skirmisher upgrade, I would say.
Okay.
The Banyas. It gives you Neftenias even more hit points, which is nuts because they already have more hit points than a normal skirmisher. And also at siege armor, which is not that important. I mean, siege armor is like the most useless armor in the game most of the times, because if your skirmishers get hit by a falconet shot, they are dead. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, it may save them a little bit, you know, especially those bounce shots. It doesn't affect them as much, but yeah, it's a bit interesting. Okay.
And one last upgrade, which is also really interesting, is the Tikai Mekonnen. That's the one above this British card.
It's above the skirmish card?
It's over this Hakabuzir card with the British
flag.
Okay,
okay.
That's also really interesting because it's an F10 upgrade. It's normal skirmisher damage, but you also get another scout. Which is very awkward mechanic, but that's the thing I said. You can play Ethiopia more equally and then include all these upgrades to play more late game style, but I think it's just weaker than the Death Ball play style. But I just want to show that it's possible.
Right.
And that's the thing. You can almost do anything with the Sith if you want to.
Right. And that's not including all the, you know, various texts and stuff like that. We'll have to probably do a separate Ethiopian video to kind of even get into all the various texts.
You can do so many videos about Ethiopia. That's the weird thing with it. And one last card, because that's the biggest controversy of my Issa Warriors. I would like to talk about the 8 Conquistadors.
Okay, sure. So what about them?
Most of the pro players always have them in deck. And I just want to say that my head hurts always when I see this. Because when we talk about it, 8 goons for 500 influence in H3 is so bad value. Like, resource-wise, it's really bad. And many people just have them deck because, yeah, you can have some pops with it and stuff like that, but I would say with the Issas you could get even better pops. I mean, the Conquistadors are better against Falks, but it just doesn't really matter. 8 goons for 500 resources in H3 is just so bad value, and I just wanted to tell you that you should not do this in your deck. Even like people like Julian K always have it in their decks and they show it and stuff like that, but I'm not a big fan and I always hated on that. So
okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's kind of weird because I mean they may be pretty good goons, but you already are sending 11 that counter all of the calves, so it just the difference is that these are infantry and this is cavalry. I guess that's the only difference.
Exactly. And that's the thing we talked about. Skirm Goon, only good players do it. The good players are just more comfortable with goons, and They can do it, but it's not the optimal way to play the game from the spot.
Okay. All right. So there you go. Fair warning for anybody watching. It's a bad card. Okay. Any other honorable mentions in Age 3 you want to go over?
Well, I think we're good to go.
Okay. All right. So going into the fourth age, what else? We only have 2 cards left for this deck. So what do you put in?
Yeah, as I said, Ethiopia does not have the best scaling, the best late game. So we limit our cards in Age 4 because I think if you have to go to Age 4, your game already looks not that great for you.
Okay.
So you should not do it. But the thing with the Age 4 cards of Ethiopia is they have many unit upgrade cards that are interesting. Like next to the 12 Gaskenias, there's 5% hit points on any unit. So every unit you have gets 5% hit points, which is interesting.
Wow.
But otherwise, you don't really have that many cards. It's the same in H3. You have many unit cards, but you don't really have the best upgrades. There are a few eco upgrades that are rather good, but I would just like stock standard every deck 1600 influence, because as I said, it gives you like, it can give you, if you go against heavy cannons, you can just make 3 culverins with it.
Right.
It helps you out a lot against other H4. And I would just include the 2 Sebastopol mortar because it's also really, really good value.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So basically this is your like 2 heavy cannon, except they're not heavy cannon, and then you have flexibility with the influence.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, and we've gone over the Ignatian Spirituality. That's one that you always see in decks.
Yeah. This card also is pretty niche, but it can be really good. If you make a big pop with like mercenaries, if you have a good H4 mercenary as an example, it can be a good card. And also to the end of the second row, so to the right, that's also a really, really strong eco card for late game. So in team decks, I would also pick it every time.
Okay.
But as I said, you don't really want to rely on eco later on.
Okay, so another 25%. Okay, interesting. So, all right. So this is about does it, right? This is your land deck.
Yeah, that's it. That's my standard land deck.
Okay. I'm gonna ask if it's possible, because obviously this is a very specific kind of deck, and if I asked you to build a water deck,
Yeah, sure.
out of this deck though, like how could I change this deck to include some potential water?
Yeah, you can, and that's also an interesting thing because many people build Ethiopia water decks wrong.
Okay.
Because you have a lot of ship options in H3, especially. And most people tend to pick the wrong ones.
Okay, gotcha. So what are the right ones? Let's go to H2.
Yeah, we start in H2. That's like pretty normal. We only have the 2 and the 1 boat. Of course, we pick the 2. And
Okay.
I would just exclude the 4 villagers for it.
Okay, got it. So 2
Because
battle
you
canoes.
don't.
Okay.
Those are also very interesting. You can build units on them, so it's like, I don't know how.
Oh, sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. So you're saying you can train units from them like a
Yeah,
galleon?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is really interesting, and they have very good stats. So their combat-wise, they are really, really good anti-water unit. They win against 2 caravels, I think.
Oh, okay. So really good card. Interesting.
A really, really good card.
Okay, so we'll have those, and then I guess we'll go to H3, and then what would you pick here?
So I would exclude the H shuttle, and I would pick the war dhow. And that's where many people do the wrong thing. The war dhow is a mercenary ship, so it has very, very high hit points. It's extremely tanky and very good in combat. And what many people do wrong is to pick the cannon boat, because if you see this, you would think the 3 battle canoes is like the European 3 caravel shipment that the fuselage have, and the 1 cannon boat must be the same that a frigate is.
Right, right, exactly.
But the cannon boat is like a mortar ship, a really, really bad version of a mortar ship.
Ooh, okay.
It doesn't really have that much hit points. It doesn't really have that much damage. It has lesser range, so it's pretty much really, really useless. And I would never recommend anyone to build them.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so it's kind of like a really bad monitor, so don't recommend it. The War Dao is really good, and your battle canoes are really good, especially in H2. But this is, so anybody watching, go ahead and take a screenshot of this. This is kind of a potential water where you can kind of counter your opponent's water. However, if you're looking to build a water deck for more economic play, this is maybe not exactly the deck for you, but we're going to focus on land. But this is a good deck for countering the water play of your opponent. Okay, so we're going to revert this back. And so take a screenshot. This is going to be your standard land deck. Well, or not standard. It's going to be Meloncola standard land deck.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
it's my stand.
We're gonna go into skirmish, and we're gonna play against an easy AI. And you're gonna coach me through the build order. Can you give me the sort of the quick and dirty of it? Just walk me through what my card order is gonna be before we go in.
So we do the classic. A lot of people know it. We do the Meloncola triple Rex rush.
Okay.
It's like a build order that's terrorized the ladder in the last month or so, and it's my really special build. So the raw card order would be Trinity first, afterwards the Big Benny, then we would go for 700 wood, then we ship the palace, and then we ship the 7 cannoneers.
Okay.
And afterward, it's very flexible. You can send resource crates, you can age up, you can send villagers for eco and stuff like that. So, but that's the initial build order. You will always do this if you play this build order.
Okay, got it. All right, so let's get into it. We're gonna go right into a skirmish. Hopefully it doesn't lag out on me. I was freaking out last time. So, all right, cool. So you guys can see I have not played a lot of Ethiopia, so this is going to be pretty interesting. We're just going to go standard maps on easy. I'm not going to gather a lot of treasures, just so we can just do, you know, we can focus in on what you're telling me with the build order.
Yeah.
All right.
But important for treasures, you will always focus livestock treasures, wood treasures, and food treasures.
Perfect. And we start on Florida, so that's already going to give us the market. So I guess we get 2 markets.
Yeah, sure. We have 2 markets now, which is interesting. So
all right.
The start is pretty different. You have normally you would have resource crates as a normal civ, but we have a cattle that's instantly gonna get killed. So it's like full fattened cattle, so it's 500 food, which is the opening. And what you want to do is to gather on the cattle for your first villager, so your first 100 food, and then you move 1 villager to build a granary next to your herd.
Right.
The rest of the villagers gathers the rest of the cattle and then moves to full on food.
Okay, so none of the cattle are going to go to, or 2 of the cattle go to the livestock market.
3 go. You have 3. The 1 is dead already.
Right.
So you start with 4, 1 full fattened and 3 half fattened it is, I think, or it's on 100.
Yeah, 100 something.
Yeah. And yeah, you move them on the livestock market.
Okay.
Exactly. Now you build a granary and now you queue villagers. And afterwards you move all the food. And then you also see you have your sell rates to the right. And what we want to do is we want to sell our first cattle for 150 wood.
Okay, so just so everybody sees, I'm going to keep pausing this just so we know, you know, everybody can see it. Down here is the exchange. So trade livestock for wood, trade livestock for coin. It's not this. These are your standards. These are your upgrades. This is where the exchange is. So what you're saying is we're going to sell for wood. There it is.
No. It's I said for 150 wood.
Oh, 150. Oh, okay. All right, a little too early. We can restart if you like.
Yeah, restart it.
Okay, we'll restart. That's fine. 150.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, as I said, it's if you play it for the first time, it's really, really complicated because it's so different from the rest.
It's okay. Now we can just do it in real time. I got it. Let's do it.
I think you'll feel this map type helps
so I want to get the greenery first.
It also helps mine.
Yes.
This guy.
And maps like Florida, as I said, are really good because you can find sheep on the map.
Right. So like this guy right here is already there. And we can put him on that one as well, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
So only one to build the granary, even though it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine. So now you go full on food.
All right, so we're still waiting for that exchange. Oh, you can see it right here, actually, so we're good.
Yeah. Which also, a hotkey not many people know, I can tell you right now. If you go control left click on your sell rates on the right, you already sell the cow, so you don't have to go to the market.
Oh, okay. Oh, you can just control left click this.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. All right, so let's try that. Yeah, okay, cool. So now we have 150
Now,
wood.
yeah, and now you build a house and you get your hunting dogs in the granary.
Okay, so that 150 wood is for the 100. Can I build another granary here? Let's just do that.
You can.
Okay.
And then you also get your hunting dogs in the granary. That's also an interesting thing. Yeah, they only cost 50 wood, but are 5% less effective.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So the thing is, it's similar to Lakota basically. We already have the very good food eco now. And yeah, that's it. So that's now you only gather to H2 basically.
Okay, and then what how many, so Trinity first, so how many vills do I age up
with your equipment included, you age with 15 to 16 pop.
Okay.
Which is essentially 13 wills because the Aboon is worth 2 pop space.
So you guys can see, obviously, this little thing gives them the boost, right? And then you can see the range when you press Alt. So it's a pretty far range, and then you have, yeah, and then you can see that they're already kind of lining up.
And you can also look at the gather rate, because the gather rate on food is really good.
Yeah, 0.97.
Yeah. 0.97. That's like almost normal steel traps.
Okay, and then with that Aboon, you're gonna say, oh, we need to take treasures, whatever this guy
can. Do the finding. Yeah, this guy can also take treasures alone.
Oh, he can. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really that strong in combat, so you could go for a 16 fill. It's fine. Yeah. So the thing with the Aboon is, you have many ways to use him. You can just go with it. You can take small treasures with it. And the thing that I almost every time do is like harass the enemy scout with my scout and heal my scout from the back.
Okay, gotcha.
Because you can't win the fight with a healer behind it.
Okay, and then you can see that exchange rate is tied to food amount, right? So the sheep are just going to inherently be less. So, all right, hold on. Let's go ahead and...
Yeah.
Will it let me pause? There we go. All right.
So we see we don't have the common age ups. We have alliances, which is also a really special thing. So every Sylph unlocks you 2 special tags in your mountain monastery, which you can see under them, which under the thing unlocks. And what we also see is that every age up gives us a special building and some resources.
Right.
And there are many ways we can do. So the Somalis are like very good for boom because they have eco tags and stuff like that. The Abesha is also good for boom because it gives us 300 coin, and with 300 coin we can build 2 Aboons, which is a good eco boost. And the Jesuits are for more tempo-based H3 play. So if you want to go for an FF and stuff like that, we do it because we get 300 XP, which gives us much tempo.
Right.
The Portuguese in H2 lag a bit right now. They were good because they gave you Expos in H2. They still do, but the Expos are like very nerfed.
Okay.
So they're not really that good. And what we are gonna do is we do the Sudanese.
Okay. So I'm gonna let you guys read that.
The special thing about the Sudanese, why this build work, is we get a native embassy and 300 influence, and we can build Sudanese dervishes.
Okay.
And the thing is, we unlock the Red Sea Wagon tag from the Sudanese. And the Red Sea Wagons allow us to build 2 war camps with them. So we already have 2 racks. With the native embassy, we have 3 racks. And that's where the build comes in. We have a triple Rex rush.
Nice. Okay, cool. So, and these texts are going to be unlocked at the mountain monastery. So we'll have to build that. All right. So we're going to go ahead and accept on Sudanese, and we're going to let that age up kick in. So we're
and transition, you move to wood with all your builds.
all.
Yeah. And we gather 300 wood to build 2 mountain monasteries. You can build your mountain monasteries with your Abun. And you always want to build your mountain monasteries in front because they have a very, very big line of sight, so you can scout everything. And what you also want to do is to get the wood upgrade in your market. Yeah, exactly that.
Okay. So Mount Monastery is going down. Do I keep them on wood?
Yeah, okay, actually we do the advanced thing. We gather for 200 wood and build trading post.
Okay.
That's the thing I mostly do currently. I mean, currently I haven't played for months, but...
All right, so we're going to bank that shipment.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so he can stay there.
Yeah, and afterwards we move everything to food now.
Okay. Oh, I can't see it. It's whatever. Okay, and what about... So now everybody can see these are the texts, and then these you can change 50-50, 25, and then coin.
We keep it like that for now.
Okay.
And now when we age up, you want instantly to collect the influence
Okay.
from the age up. Build your native embassy as a front base. And also build your mountain monastery on a mine in front.
Okay, so we could do something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. The thing from the mountain monasteries I haven't talked about is they give passive feeding to units nearby, so that's actually a really good spot. Then when you fight in the front base, they also get passive healing. And now what you want to do is to get the red sea wagon tech in your mountain monastery.
Right there.
That one. Yeah.
350. Okay. Sorry, my computer's been experiencing a little bit of lag lately with the OBS in the game. I don't know. I need to figure that out, but it's not terrible just yet. So, okay. Everybody understands what's going on. So we're sending Big Benny. Everything's being built. We're solid right now.
Yeah.
Looking really good.
And now we move these 2 at the front and build 2 war camps. So now you want to send 700 wood. And now we see the Big Benny came in, and now you just insta sell it for 750 wood.
Oh, so they just go right onto the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, and then I don't even have to gather any wood. Look at that. Yeah. That's a ton of wood.
And then you want to build 2 houses and get steel traps in your granary.
Okay, so this is actually quite good economically.
Yeah.
You said steel traps. Oh, at the granary. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is going to look like that for you, snares.
And now, when your warcamp stand, you just mass Gascanias out of both.
And these cost, was it? It's yeah, wood. So 70-30. So it's not coin, it's wood.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows.
Now you can gather the wood from your shipment.
And pop. So make sure that you're watching your pop.
Yeah. And now it's like the thing you do. You just mass your Gascanias, you raid with your Gascanias, or take small trades. Because they're stronger than most other H2 masks, so you always win the early wars.
Mm-hmm. And then when can I sell again for the cattle?
If we have no wood left after your 700 wood shipment, then you can sell it for either woods when you need Gascanias, or coin if you want to go into shortles.
Or you said 700 influence, sorry.
No. You go for the palace.
Palace, okay.
So what the palace does for us now is it gives us a military ship point at our front base and makes our front base more robust against attacks, which is really good for us. And now, usually you want to go into the enemy base with the Gascanias, idle him, kill 1 or 2 wills.
Right.
That's mostly the thing you want to do. You always want to keep moving around the enemy base. and always pump more units the whole time. Always watch your pop space. That's like the most important thing with this build. You don't really have to macro because you are always only on food most of the time.
Right.
But you have to watch your pop space and your units that come out. So the palace goes to the front base and we pick up the 300 influence from the shipment.
Yep, they're on it. So we can go ahead and just plop down another granary just to anticipate that right now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we already see it's a really high APM build.
Right.
That's why it's not that easy as many people say. And now when you have like 300 coin, you can now add shotels to your Gascania mass.
Okay, I see. I see what you're saying.
Because we don't farm gold, we don't really sell anything for gold, but we get passive income from our monasteries, which is enough to pump a few cav into it, which is really interesting.
Right, right.
And now we send the cannoneers.
Sorry, the cannoneers. Okay, so we have 500 now at this point, right? So we can just go ahead and send that. Okay.
And then afterwards, you can sell a cow for wood now because we need some houses.
Okay, yeah, as soon as the game stops freaking out. So control, click that. And I had him building houses, so we'll do that. We need to herd that a little bit better.
And that's like the thing, when you look at your mass now, the mass you've got out in under 10 minutes is completely nuts.
Yeah, and then especially considering that it is a rush, it's going to be a lot faster than that, so.
Yeah.
So, and I think...
Now you could also sell a cattle for a coin now to add more calf.
Okay.
Now it can just pump calf out of both buildings, which is really, really strong. And now you basically have one of the strongest early must-cast compositions in the game.
Yeah, this is very good.
It's very, very good.
And then your palace there to kind of defend it, and then you can make that a shipment point. So for your cannoneers when they come in.
Now your cannoneers, and that's the thing where you want to end the game normally, or bring the game into a spot where it's almost done when you have your cannoneers. And that's also the point where you move your Abun at the front. Because that's a game decisive moment, you want to have your full fighting power. And that's why you move Abun in front. And now that's like the decisive combat of the game, this fight. Normally.
Ooh, we got a lot of idle there. So when they build a greenery, is it they automatically start gathering food after they build it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They do.
Okay. So that's pretty good. But I mean, obviously this is stammering right now. I mean, we're still recording and this is stammering, but so we kind of have the idea that this is going to be a lot faster if you're playing it like, not the first time, but this is very, very, very strong. If you can get the APM down, this is incredibly strong. And then after this, you can just go ahead and age up because your food economy is so good. You send the 700 coin.
Yeah. Now you can send just in 700 coin H behind it.
Yep.
You can treasure your enemy. And as you said, you have a good food eco. And the coin you get passively for H up. I mean, you see the auto macro. We are on almost 300 coin now. And the 700 coin comes in. We just have to get our food now. And get H up behind it, which is really, really nuts.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then if you wanted to, I guess you could send another Big Benny if you rather do that instead.
You could do that. You could send units if you need some. Or just Gascania attack, because it's a really good upgrade card. Or even, which is also good, 700 influence, and then you can build your Sudanese dervish from the embassy.
Oh, right, because we never used that. Okay. Yeah, and these only cost 90. Okay, I see. Yeah, we should have done that. But, okay, so good to know.
If you're really, really lucky, you could also build mercenaries from your palace, but you have to get lucky that you get an H2 mercenary. We haven't got any here.
Oh, I see.
These are like, these to the left are like the Minutemen, and you can also build any native you get from your H up from the palace, so...
And these all shadow tech, don't they, right? They shadow tech?
They shadow tech.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Everything shadow techs here. And that's the thing. With the palace, it's basically a 4-Rex rush, because with 700 influence, you could do even double Rex the Sudanese.
Wow.
With a double Rex behind.
Jeez. That's crazy. So then when you age up, do you just go ahead and it's up to the game at that point where you can send Sebastopol, but you would probably send, what, 1,000 influence to get the gun, to get falconets, and then you can send Zebu cattle after that to...
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends. if you have maintained your mass in H2, you could just send the Sebastopol to like give it the addition they need. Because one thing we haven't talked about, Ethiopian units are very, very, very low siege, actually.
Yeah.
Because Kenyans don't have that much siege for a musketeer unit. And also the Shotel, I mean, it's a cav unit, they don't have to get siege, but they also don't have that much siege, and that's where the Sebastopol is really good. But also, if you maintain your mass, you could also go for eco just behind it, and if you lose your mass, you just spam out the military shipments and build your death ball back up.
Okay. I see what you mean. Okay. So, you know, again, apologies for the lag. I need to figure out what's going on with my computer, but hopefully you guys got a sense of what Meloncola was saying, that, you know, if you can get the APM down, you know, make sure that you're selling the cattle, getting everything right. And I felt like all that was demonstrated after we restarted. Everything, you know, it's smooth. You immediately get those techs out, you put your military units down, and then it's pretty simple in terms of the macro. You're massing, you're getting the death ball going, you're hitting your opponent really hard. And then it's just knowing not to overcommit to H2. So once you get the cannoneers in, that's going to be your money maker, because you're going to use these guys high damage. They're going to be taking out a bunch of enemies. You're massing tons of Gaskenya. They're going to siege it out. Shotel are going to be raiding in the back. They're going to be going in and taking out these villagers, going off to the side. You're going to be raiding, pushing. And then you can they'll collapse at the right moment, right when you send the Abun forward and get your cannoneers there in, and that's going to be the fight. Or once that's done and they're weakened but you didn't finish them off, just go ahead and go to H3. And then what is your H3 option that you recommend in this just so we know?
For H up?
Yeah.
So I mostly go for Portuguese.
Okay.
Because one thing I haven't talked about, the Portuguese, so first of all, it gives you 500 wood, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives you the option to you get an arsenal, which is also very good to buff up your army. I mean, you can tech your Shotels even more, and you get a tech for 1,500 influence, where you get an organ gun for every mountain monastery you have.
Nice. Super
so
nice.
More artillery, more buff on your army. So it's just everything comes in together. So good, basically.
Okay. Do you ever send the Kebra Nagast here for that?
Exactly. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. When I transition to H3, I shift my mountain monastery to 50-50 and get like 10 to 15 builds on it, so I can gather the 450 in transition.
Okay, I see.
So you can get it through like halfway, and then you are insta up in H3.
Okay, so so when you're getting ready to transition, go 50-50.
Yeah.
Get Kebra Nagast, and then
you don't lose your tempo that much, which is really good.
Right.
And also you get coin besides that, and I mean, we can use coin anytime we want. We haven't talked about the unit upgrade in the war camp. We also want to get the infantry upgrade. And that's another really big thing. We upgrade all our 3 units we use with 1 upgrade.
And build time.
Yeah, and build time.
Jeez. Yeah, we should have played it out into H3.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can do a restart. I don't want to necessarily demonstrate it, but we can do I don't want to do a dev ASD, but basically you guys get the idea, is that, you know, you're fighting. This is the main bulk. You kind of want to win it out in H2, but then once you're ready to transition, you want to make sure you have 450 influence. If you don't, go ahead and switch it. Kebra Nagast, you age up, and then it's going to be usually the 1,000 influence or the Sebastopol mortar from there, and then either add to the death ball or go Zebu cattle. It's up to you. These upgrades are mad cheap, right? So you can gather the wood. Well, the aging Portuguese, right? You get 500 wood.
Yeah, you get the wood. You need
so
for it.
yeah, then you can sell a cattle.
I mean, yeah, you also get the coin by getting the influence in transition, so you can insta upgrade. And one thing, if you have some spare coin, I would also recommend to build some more Cebu kettles.
Right, there they
in
are.
The market. You can get them for 100 coin, and if you know you don't need your coin for units right now, always get 1 or 2 or maybe 3 out, so you can stabilize your sell rates with it. And I mean, it's extra eco. We like extra eco.
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. I mean, it's a lot to think about and consider, but this is actually a pretty good streamlined build. I feel like it's quite accessible. Again, like, you know, obviously we went through the build order initially, and then we kind of talked about some things after. We didn't demonstrate that, but you know, it's not too hard to understand that. Okay, well, when I'm ready to transition, when I push my opponent, they're weakened, but I can't finish the fight. Go ahead, instead of remassing and trying to finish, you can go ahead and age up and then you get ahead of your opponent, you know, and then go from there. But yeah, so very, very intense, like you said, in terms of the APM. Very very interesting civ, right? Like lots of little mechanics here and there. Like I can upgrade all my units, they all come out of the same war camp, you know, thinking about mercenaries, thinking about influence. You know, these are things that are kind of hard for a new player, but I would say that like if you sit in a skirmish and you practice what we just showed you, and you're accessible, right? So somebody can come and talk to you, speak to us on our Discord. You know, I think that's probably the best way to go about it, and then you can get used to it. And you have a really strong civ here that if you want to be really aggressive, if you really want to push your opponent over, like this is definitely the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I don't play the game anymore, but if anybody's interested in learning Ethiopia, I'm always there for it. I'm always accessible, like anytime.
Awesome.
I'm not really playing myself. And also one thing, you said it, the build order is really hard APM wise, but you have a really good learning curve because of it. You can see your mistakes more clearly than in builds where you need heavy macro, because you don't really have the feeling for the macro and stuff. But APM, you can always see where you can improve your APM, I think.
Oh yeah, exactly. And then
you also know, I could have made a badge there. I didn't finish my badge there. Oh, I forgot my builds there and stuff like that. It's more accessible for newer players than, oh, I should have went with 3 more builds to that 3 instead of 5 I had there.
Yeah, that's the feeling of European civs for sure. But with Ethiopia, you can even say, okay, well, you know, I need to remember that at this point in the game, I need to be thinking about training more cattle. You know, because those are nice little shots in the arm, right? They give you a huge injection of resources. Like you saw, we were relying on the cattle. They smoothed out the macro for us, made it really easy to get to, you know, to get our upgrades, really easy to transition to build Shotel warriors, whatever it was. And, you know, very, very good. And they helped with the influence trickle, but you have to remember to keep training those as well. So it's, you know, for everything that smooths it out, it kind of adds a little bit more, but I think it's worth it. Very good civ. Yeah, I think this is really cool. We haven't had an Age 2 rush build yet in the game. A lot of it has been semi-FF, a lot of FF going on, but this is really cool that we have a super flexible, aggressive Age 2 build, and I think you're really onto something. I can't wait to take this on the ladder. You know, Meloncola, thank you so much for taking, you know, time and staying up super late. I know you're in Germany, so thank you for staying up late. No problem. Yeah, I honestly really enjoyed the conversation. I hope that we can continue the conversation, because you said a lot of interesting things about unit composition and thinking about these things. So I hope to have you on again. But for anybody still listening and watching, I really appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope you continue to enjoy our series on the Civ Spotlights. I hope that this was enlightening to you, and maybe encourages you to try out Ethiopia. Maybe you weren't really interested in the African civs, you felt they were unapproachable, but hopefully this was a really good overview and breakdown of all the different things that you could potentially do. Once again, thank you so much. Go ahead, feel free to like and subscribe, and you'll find more links in the description. Thank you, and we will see you in the next one.